So welcome to Noon Hour Slides from the Moose Jaw Museum and Art Gallery. We're located on Treaty 4 territory, the traditional lands of the Blackfoot, Cree, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. We pay our respects to First Nations and Métis ancestors and reaffirm our relationship with one another. We gratefully acknowledge funding from the City of Moose Jaw, Sask Arts, Sask Culture, Saskatchewan Lotteries, Canada Council for the Arts, Canadian Heritage, and the Government of Canada. I'm Vincent Hotelling, the administrative assistant here. I'm here to welcome you to today's presentation. And now Rick is joining us to talk to us about his trip to Thailand.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's certainly good to see you. Just to start with, I want to thank Vince and Christy for doing this. It is really nice. I found I'd look forward to this hour every week, and to help to get that 1 hour to get away from this virus that's been holding us under. You guys and the museum, this has just been a wonderful thing, and I'm so happy that it's going to continue going on now. I thought that it might be a sort of a layup here, but you guys deserve an awful lot of credit for doing this, and it's been a nice bright light for me, getting a chance to share experiences with all you wonderful people that have let me into your life for that 1 hour every day. I really appreciate it a lot. The trip that I'm going to show you is one that Sharon and I did it was just before the virus was just starting to break out, and we ended up leaving at the end of February. It was so far ago that it was called the coronavirus back then and hadn't yet evolved into this one, and we did not have any idea how dangerous it was going to be. But having done that, I know we were going to do Thailand and Sri Lanka, but I think the length of it will be enough just to cover Thailand now. And if they'd be so nice to invite me back for another one, I'd be more than happy to show Sri Lanka a little later on. This February the 20th, we left. Already I have a glitch here happening. All started back in the beginning. And we were there on the 22nd, hopped on our little plane here in Regina. I flew to Vancouver, and there I picked up Sharon. Then we were off on one of my dream adventures. This has been the top of my bucket list for almost as long as I can remember, and I never thought I'd see the opportunity that I would have to be able to go into here. Now, originally, we were supposed to be flying into this area down in here to change planes, but the virus was taking over, and here's Wuhan. Right up here is where the virus had started, and so we got hold of our company, and they decided that using discretion, like you don't fly into a yes. So we flew to Seoul, South Korea first, and then we moved on into Thailand. We arrived in Bangkok late at night, went out and negotiated the cab fare, and here was the introduction to the City of Angels. And it was not something that it was everything I've been hoping for. We got in there, had a really good night's sleep, woke up the next morning. As I said, we had our breakfast, and this is Sharon, who is enjoying that breakfast. We woke up to this beautiful hotel just outside. This is called the Chao Phraya River, the main river that flows through Bangkok. And the breakfast was fine. It was a great way to start the day. We ended up joining with our group. This was our tour director. His name is Chorn. And he introduced us each day, even though it's written corn, up in that top corner, every day would have a phrase. So Wati was the way we would say hello to people in Thailand in the Thai language. It was completely new to me. The intriguing thing was there was only 9 of us. 20 people had canceled on the tour because of the virus. And I had just found out Bangkok is the #1 tourist destination in the world. More people go to Bangkok than go to Paris or London or any of those. But 1/3 of their tourists come from China. So it wasn't a question. That morning we got on the bus and we ended up touring through Chinatown. Chinatown was just constantly full of markets, street side restaurants, gold shops. Flowers are a big part. After Chinatown, we went to Little India. Flowers are huge. And I'm not a big flower guy, but even I thought some of these flowers look pretty darn good. Here I am dipping a lotus flower into a special urn to try and get a blessing. You take it out of there and you set it down and get a little blessing. But as you can see, not all of the people there were particularly interested in us. Then we got a chance to go to our first temple. These temples are unbelievable. This is what you know it's known as, but it's known by a much shorter name, Wat Po. This temple, you go into the Wat Po, it's one of the oldest and it's the largest temple in Bangkok. It is known for what is called the Reclining Buddha. The Reclining Buddha is 150 feet long, and each of these Buddhas are sent from China, and they're all different. I didn't know that they said most of it. And of course, it's pretty cheap, but I thought I'd stop along the way and see if I couldn't earn a couple of bahts. Anyway, it didn't work. Now, I don't usually sew. That night was my first chance of tasting this meal. And it was worth it. This is cashew chicken. And I don't know if I know what the gods eat now for dinner. It is unbelievable. It wouldn't be the first time, but the other reason I put this in is I was quite surprised. They use cutlery to eat. You get forks and spoons. They don't usually have knives. If you order a Chinese meal, then you will get it with chopsticks. But the normal Thai dinners come with cutlery, which I hadn't known. That night we went down they have open markets all over the place. We went down and that's where I was introduced to this. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of durian, but it is such a pungent aroma that they're not allowed to cut it. It's a fruit of some kind, and they're not allowed to cut it in restaurants because it stinks up the restaurant. And they have a saying there, it smells like hell, but tastes like heaven. Take it from me, it tastes like hell too. It's not that good. And I don't know why there was all a big question about it. And that night I gave everybody a lift back to the hotel in one of the tuk-tuks. Then the next morning, we took in the Grand Palace. And this Grand Palace is a Grand Palace. It is the symbolic and the ceremonial heart of all of the kingdom of Siam. In it is the official residence of the king of Siam, and that's where they live most of the time. That evening, we got a chance to go down into this area, which was known for its journey to the Enchanted Kingdom of Siam. They performed, we got to see a play. Unfortunately, you can't take pictures in that play, but it was pretty amazing. Somehow it even gave the impression that there was a river. It showed all about the history and the development of Siam, but they gave an illusion of now I've seen the Phantom, and there is a boat on a river in the Phantom too, but that's usually constructed by stage lighting and by boats with wheels on it. This was just amazing. You would have sworn you could have gone for a swim down in that area. And around it, back here, you get a chance to see. You get a chance in here to see Thai boxing. This was our first real up-close look at the East Indian elephant. They are the only elephants we trained. You can't train the African elephants. They're too big and too wild. And so for all of you who grew up like me watching Tarzan, those were really Indian elephants with makeup on, make them look like they have the bigger ears, and they had gone because they're the only ones they can train. These are cute little friendly ones. We also got a chance, they showed us a little dance routine that they go around. We could sit around. We got a chance to see some things. And then, of course, for some reason, they always pick the biggest doofus they can find to get down there and take part in it. So guess who? I happen to be the guy, the bald guy in the middle with no rhythm. Whoops, she didn't get a chance. But it was quite a night. That morning, we got up early. We got on one of these long-tailed boats, and it was going to take us to the floating market. Now, Sharon has seen these things before. I hadn't had a chance to see any of these things. And this is Sharon's signature picture. Those aren't my toes with the nice nail polish on it. Those happen to belong to Sharon. And we got a chance to go through here. That is our driver from it. And in the back is the rest of our group. There's only 9 of us. And as they pulled up, Susan's there taking a picture of them. And this is what my first impression of the floating markets. I had never seen anything like this before, but it is incredible. Each boat is like a little food service. And one thing that I found in Thailand, all my research said the dingier the restaurant, the better the food. You get really nice restaurants. It doesn't taste as good as the street stuff. And so we got a chance to go through here. Now, if you look up in the side, that's markets that have all sorts of clothes, all sorts of different things that you can buy also. But this is their foods down along the side. Here's a lady who's making some sort of an egg soup concoction. This lady was doing things with bananas, but here was what we were there for. Mango and sticky rice. That was another. I heard about the cashew chicken, and it was great. And I'd heard a ton about this cashewed rice, so we had to sit down and enjoy that. Here, Sharon's waiting. You got a chance to pick it. Now, she loves mangoes. I don't even remember if I'd ever tasted a mango before. So it was my first time completely, and I think the sticky rice is just sort of an unevaporated rice or something. It's something like, I don't know enough about cooking. It just tastes like rice, but it kind of stuck together. So here they're making the one for us, and you can see there's the sign that's on the sideline. And then of course I see this sign that says coconut ice cream. So I had to have some coconut ice cream. And then I remembered the old saying that, hey, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So I figured, wonder if I dress up like one of the locals, maybe I'll get better deals. But unfortunately, it didn't help. Got up in the morning, hopped on the bus, and it took us up to this place. This is the home Hellfire Pass, the Death Railway, and of course the bridge on the River Kwai. And that was, despite the fact the movie says Kwai, we were told the correct pronunciation is Kwai. The movie was fantastic, but I watched the documentary on the real thing. They said too, fantastic movie, pure fiction. This is the way the bridge looks today. This was how it was represented in the movie. In reality, it was more like the first picture I showed you. There's a lot of metal in it, which says even more about the incredible job those prisoner engineers did at the time in that place. Because they wouldn't have had the cranes and the things that we have to do, but they would be able to set it up. And it was a metal bridge. There was a small little wooden bridge there, but that was just to bring material back and forth so they could work on a bridge. Here's a picture. That's Sharon walking along some of the bed, and you get a chance to see just how tough it is to be able to lay a railway down in that particular area. They captured 80,000 Thais, Burmese and Cambodians, ripped out of their homes, were brought here and made to work on this railway. You'll still see parts of the railway in certain areas to show you the small gauge that it happens to be found at, and things along those lines. And here's what I do best. I'm standing and observing. That seems to be what I'm good at. So I figured I might as well keep it that one case. Here is again, now off to the left, there is a commemoration thing here. You can see the Australian flag, and they have a commemoration there for all of the Australian prisoners of war who lost their lives, and can still see some of the wood from the remains. And that is the kind of terrain they had to build to go through that. Then we got on the train, and we had to go up into Hellfire Pass to see this area that they built it through. And we got onto this little bit of a train that would take us back to the famous bridge. And it seems they just let anybody drive these trains around here. There we've got the museum that is there to commemorate all of the soldiers. It's dedicated to the many soldiers that they have. Most of them, there were 60,000 prisoners of war, mostly Australian, British, and some American ones that were caught when the Japanese were overrunning. The intriguing thing was some of the guards were they were Korean, and the Japanese soldiers beat on them just as much as they beat on the prisoners. This is dedicated to all of the people. This one is kind of, you had to move that much rock in order to earn that small bowl of rice. So you can understand how starvation was a big part of the soldiers. There were 12,000 Allied soldiers that died in that camp. And here Sharon is looking through the graves. It's a very, very somber. A friend of mine from Australia saw the pictures on Facebook, and he said he was there, and he said the hair on the back of his neck would stand up when he saw, because they heard a lot about this, as much about this place as we've heard of some of the atrocities that were much closer to home. Then we go driving, and you see these signs, and this kind of blew me away. These are elephant crossing signs. Oh, this is pretty cool. You have to keep out, mind you, we've got deer crossing signs. You run into a deer, things are bad, but you run into an elephant, they're really bad. Then we came across this, which I wasn't sure what it was, but this is farming for salt. They farm for salt here. It's seawater, and they trap this seawater and they let it evaporate, and then they gain salt from it. And it's a really, really tough job. It's very incredibly hard work. And then it is sold here. That is the guy. That's not a bandit there. He's the guy selling salt, and he's wearing that hood on his head to help himself protect. And that's our bus driver there, looking very scholarly. And we stopped at this area. It's also selling sticky rice. But this was cool. But this wasn't our main reason for stopping. It was this. He called it star food. He said, if you spell it backwards, you can understand what it is. So many of those little rats are running around their fields, they found, let's make a business out of it. So they would stop and they would deep fry. And here Sharon's picking the one she would love to have. On that one, the one with the big drumsticks, I think she wanted on that one. But it was, I have eaten in Peru, and I've had guinea pig. And it wasn't that bad, but I don't think I could tie into one of these babies. Hey, even now the hair is standing on the back of my head. Then it was time to hit on here, and we took off to Ayutthaya. Now, Ayutthaya it's the second Siamese capital. Now, that was before Bangkok came later, but it was the second place in which everything was ruled. beautifully immaculate hedges. The Bangpa Inn Royal Palace is its official name. This is the layout of what it's like. It's pictures don't really do it justice. At one time, this was one of the richest, Ayutthaya itself was one of the richest places in all of Asia. Right now, it is basically used as a summer palace for the Thai royalty. Now, he's showing all of the water that's in this area. In 1881, there was a boat carrying, her name was Queen Sananda and her daughter. And as they were coming down that channel, the boat capsized. They were struggling for their lives in the water. Now, along the shore, there were many, many commoners, but the law forbid any commoner to touch royalty. So they were forced to just stand there and watch as the queen and the princess drowned to death. And it was just shortly after that, the king of Siam changed that rule. But that was how stringent it was at the time. Now, this is the remains of the Ayutthaya Historical Park. This was the center of everything. Now, Burma at the time, it's not called Burma anymore, but at the time it was called Burma. They seemed like they were constantly coming across and fighting war. They ended up taking this city and completely destroying it. So all you see there are the remains. There's the huge Buddha head. There was a stone Buddha carved down, and this tree grew all around it. And it made for sort of a really kind of a nice setting to have the Buddha's head peeking out from the roots of that ancient tree. Then you could look at this particular area was there and you get some idea. It was full of palaces, monasteries, and towers. And but again, as time would come, it was overrun, completely destroyed, and all its remains are the memories of what it might have been. Now we finished that, and it was about the late afternoon, and we didn't realize, but Chorn had established a little boat ride for us. He had some snacks and no mix for that. That was a pretty heavy shot. But more surprising, as we got down the river, we looked down, and it was just off work for all of these, I think they're called howdahs, and they're elephants. And they were bringing them down to drink and to cool off. And to my surprise, we're heading right directly towards them. Now, Chorn had made an arrangement. As we got down closer, some of these elephants started to come right towards us. And we got about as close to them. It was pretty cool. This guy, he's a cute little guy. I'd like to take him home. Hey, buddy. He even has a smile. Then it was getting to be sundown. Fantastic ride heading back to the hotel along the river. Everything is found along the river. We did several trips on the river, and we went by, and as you could, we had seen this area. You saw palaces, monasteries. This is the royal palace just at sunset, and you saw some very nice looking restaurants, and they eventually got us back home. And we had a good night's sleep, good dinner. We had the meals. I cannot tell you how fantastic the meals are. They are just absolutely incredible. Got on the bus, and we're starting to head north. We had a brief stop there, but we were heading to Chiang Rai. I didn't know any other cities. Bangkok was it. Chiang Rai and Chiang Mai were just two unbelievable surprises. Now, as you can see, we stay in just terrible, terrible hotels. But they're just beautiful hotels. The kind of hotels that if I was doing this on my own, I couldn't afford. This was the base of one in Chiang. This is what it looked like. We got there during the evening, so we were off we had dinner. We had the entire place. There's nobody else there. And that's just when it started to dawn on me, maybe there is an epidemic that's going on. They were careful where we were at. You had to wash your hands every time you got on the bus. The bus driver was there to squirt your hands, but there were no masks. Things were seemed to be, but as you can see, there's just nobody else with. And look at the view at the back out the thing. It was just fantastic, and we got clowning around, but we weren't the only ones. You can see the ladies. The other thing I'd like you to know, you do notice there are no full wine glasses at the table, so it sort of helps. This little guy that Sharon's standing with there has been working there for 30 years. He just was such a joy. He was there to help. So pleasant, limited English, but it didn't seem to matter. Now, they say that every place has a twin. Everybody's got a look-alike someplace in there. And the Germans even have a name for it, doppelganger. Well, what do you think? Did I find my doppelganger or what? That afternoon, we got a chance to go into Myanmar. Talk about a different world. It's a walking distance, but it was like night and day. We walked through customs. There was a couple of guys sitting there. They never got up. They didn't check anything. We ended up just walking through. And this was what the street scene looked like when we got there. It didn't seem to have near the organization. Thailand is a very clean and very, very, seems like things are in order. We got in here and it was the other way around. Even their tuk-tuks were different. You notice these aren't quite as nice as the ones we had back. That one, these were basically a motorbike on the front. Friendly guys, and they took us all that we wanted. And here's their stores. Here are the lady. That's her shop. Right on the blanket on the sidewalk. She's selling fresh fruits there. This lady deals with spices. She at least had a roof over her head. But like many of them, here's a couple of shopkeepers probably talking about what they saw on The Bachelor last night. This one, sitting there selling vegetables. And we found this place. Now, one of the things they have, betel leaf with nuts. It sort of gives you a tobacco buzz. Many of them eat. The unfortunate thing is it stains teeth really badly, but it is something they all will take it. Here's the guy that was showing us around. He's mixed up a couple of leaves and he's giving us a look, and it's a little closer. This is what it is. You crumble it up in that and then you stick it in your mouth, and I figure, I have to try it. And as you can see, it was not good. I don't think chewing tobacco is very good either. So it was one of those things. But I had to try it, and I couldn't spit it out fast enough. Then we came across this one area. That lady's name, she's a nurse from Detroit. There's a guy selling his homemade brew. And we had to try a sip of that homemade brew. And Karen's just getting ready, and this is her reaction after she had it. It was pretty potent stuff. And then, of course, after that, she was just about ready to buy anything. The one thing, though, to notice on that white powder they've got on their faces, that is a special. We seem to be the only society that thinks tan is healthy. It's good. All of the Orientals or the Eastern societies don't want that brown one. So they wear those to protect their skins from the sun. And their tendency to think is the only people that get tans are the ones that are poor and have to work in the sun. And so to them, it's kind of like a status symbol, but it is to protect their skin because the sun gets pretty drastic. Then we got a chance to go visit one of their temples. And I get churched out. When I travel through Europe, I get churched out. Like, they all are incredible. They're all big. I never got churched out on these temples. It was strange. Like, and even in this one, and we showed you, Myanmar is not as affluent as there. This was my little guide. And he told me he knew all the stuff about it, and he had this. I felt like the king of Siam, walking around, my own private guide, and keeping the sun off my. He probably took pity on my lack of covering for the top of my head, but it didn't really matter. And we got there, Sharon. Now this would have been a good start. As soon as I saw this, I said I should have had this one and had it say RKO Films, because it's like those old films that you used to see in black and white with started with a guy banging on the gong. This would have been a great way to start this little presentation. But she's hitting on the gong, and this is inside the temple. You do know you can't walk in the temple. You have to take your shoes off. But you had no problems with doing that because they were just so beautiful in these temples. Got a chance to see the temples, and then they had the House of Opium. Now, this place was in what they called it the Golden Triangle. That is these three countries down here in the bottom. Laos, Myanmar, and our home place. and it was through there that basically all of the opium traveled. And so it was a big deal. In here are several types of scales they used. There are some of the pipes that were used, but it was all through that. It was known as the Golden Triangle. Then after that morning, we got in Chiang Rai, went to Chiang Mai. This was my favorite city of the ones that we got a chance to visit. It is more traditional, but it was like Bangkok, you know, it's an eastern city, but it's very modern. And you can get in parts, you definitely know it's not North American. Chiang Mai kept a lot of its look. That morning, we all got in one of these buses, and we're heading out into the countryside. We got into this area, and this is an area that had the Hill tribe and the Long Neck tribes. Now, I couldn't resist this picture. In that picture, there are three of the Long Neck Karens. Her name is Karen. So I figured, I got to take this picture. So I got a picture of 4 long neck Karens in this particular picture. She was a good sport. She's ready to go along with it. There's corn now. We took walking sticks and we stepped down. This is where they're living. Basically, they didn't have any touch with what we call, I'm sure they thought they were civilized. But our type of civilization, 1920, these people were virtually untouched. They lived this lifestyle. And one thing, I know that I was in some of the townships in South Africa, 2-room hovels, but everyone had a satellite dish. I did not see any kind of communication like that on any of these. Then some of the long necks decided to get together, and they're going to show us here. Sharon has joined the chorus line. Got a nice picture of this lady. Now, I showed you my doppelganger, my twin. I think Sharon found her doppelganger. They look exactly the same to me. That is the long neck Karens. She's more there. They're both with the Hill tribes, but it's a pretty amazing. Now, it had to be explained to me that I thought they put a ring on it every year till it's extended. What I guess it does, it pushes your shoulders down. It doesn't make your neck longer. Your neck can't get longer. So it pushes the shoulders down so that eventually they get, that's a heck of a long neck. And again, you can see the stuff on the side of her face that helps protect her from the sun. This temple, I was doing some research on it. They consider this the creepiest temple maybe in all of Asia. Looks beautiful, but well, Sharon was the only one to really go inside the temple and she said it gave her a very, very eerie type of feeling. I was expecting some Disney princess to start singing Let It Snow, because it looked so much like Frozen there right in the middle. It's very modern. It's a new temple. And right here gives you an idea just how strange this guy. You can see all of these hands. They are supposed to be people reaching up for desires that they're having, like all of the temptations and greed and desire. That's what these people are supposed to be reaching. This is the walkway that takes you into that temple that helps get you free without having to go through all of those. The intriguing thing, and I've looked and looked and I can't figure it out, but there's a fingernail right there on the right hand side. The only color in there, that one, there's red nail polish on that one. I thought there's got to be some reason for that, but I couldn't find anything that mentioned anything about that. Now this is, if you go and you walk that way, lead the good life, you'll get inside, and inside there's a mural. And that mural has got people like Spider-Man and Harry Potter fighting Cruella, various other Disney villains, and Freddy Krueger. And it is, like I said, it is considered one of the creepiest temples in all of Asia. And I think Sharon is the only one that actually got into that one. I don't remember anybody else going through that particular area. Now, just to show you, there's a little bit of the performance the Hill Tribe did for us. And this little guy comes and steals the show. And this is Monk walking by, and that was to me, that was a terrific day. We had the chance. Then we got to go to these botanical gardens. These are known as the Queen Scarret Botanical Gardens. Well, it's a tropical place, so you're going to have tons. It's got volcanic soil, so things grow. This is just the walkway that you take through some amazing things. This is an example of some of the flowers. I'm not a big flower guy, but I was pretty impressed with a lot of these things. Now, these flowers look pretty safe, but you do have to be careful because some of them are very dangerous. Now, I couldn't go to Thailand without getting a Thai massage. So about 4 of us figured, okay, we're going to go have a Thai massage here. It's quite a ceremony. They give you a really neat little, well, you got a nice little pair of coolie shorts and you've got a nice button-down shirt that you get to keep. Starts with a tea ceremony, and this is the tea ceremony that you've got here on it. Then you have a choice, and you get to pick one. You want an oil rub, or do you want a moderate massage, or do you want the aggressive? You want the full deal. Well, I haven't had one before. I'm going to go for the full deal. And everybody warned me that you better be careful about these things on it. In fact, I even saw somebody talk about go taking one of these on a YouTube channel once. She said she was laid up for 2 days. But I figured, I'm going to go for the full deal. So we walked into this room, and there are there's 4 of us, so you had 4 masseuses. And I figured, well, I better, if I'm going to get the tough one, I want to pick the littlest girl. She can't be the toughest. As soon as I got in, the biggest girl there came to me. Now, these Thai people are tiny. But I got the biggest one there. Well, I wanted the aggressive one. I'm going to find out what this is all about. Starts with a little foot washing ceremony. And then you go into the room, and it was fantastic. Like, they're so cheap over there. Sharon, do you remember, what do you guys pay for massages?
Oh, it was like maybe $5, $10, because we would go at the cheap time, of course, in the afternoon.
Yes, it's, but they're that cheap. And me, it was just amazing. It was one of the best things. And I might have slept better that night than I have on the whole tour. Usually I'm so excited. The next day, though, we're heading for another temple. This temple is called Wat Pharthat Doi Suthet. Now, I had a hard enough time pronouncing it, but this is the most sacred temple in northern Thailand. The biggest thing about it is it's a long way up. There are roughly 290 steps up there. If you look off to the side, you've got these dragon-headed serpents on these steps. It's considered 3,500 feet above sea level. Now, I have to explain the next picture a little bit. You realize that's a long way up. And I might have been a little bit stiff and sore from I did have a major massage, so I might not have found my way up that hill quite as easy as some of the others had done, but I managed to make it. Now, you get an idea of what this is like Shangri-La. It is absolutely incredible the way it was set up there. This is a wish tree. You can buy one of those. Sharon has one, and you can write the names. Maybe a loved one that has passed away, or one of your grandparents or something, and you can hang them on those wish trees. It's supposed to bring you good luck. You'll see Susan, and that's what it's like there with those beautiful trees all over the place, and it is really, really an incredible place. And then here Sharon is going to get herself blessed. She's got the flowers. You pick up those flowers, and she has the candle. You ended up lighting that candle, and then you place the flowers in here. Well, I figured if anybody in our group needs a blessing, it's going to be me. So I figured I better do my best to get one of those. So I got up there, picked up my flower, lit my candle, and I put my candle in there. I figured, okay, I'm safe now. Then we ended up going into this little place, and you see that thing in my hand, it's got a bunch of sticks. You shake it till a stick comes out, and there's a number. And when that number comes out, get you a piece of paper, and that's going to read read your fortune for you. Mine was pretty good. I was pretty happy. Sharon didn't like hers, and so she had to go. Jorn helped her to go to one of the monks to help bless her to overcome the bad luck she was supposed to have. She won't tell me what that bad luck was, but maybe you're not supposed to. I don't know. Then we went to this Jade Store. That is a flower that this guy has been working on. It's pretty amazing stuff that he got there. Not cheap. Sharon was looking at some of the rings here from that Jade Store. Really was nice. Some of our people bought stuff. And that night, we were invited to, one of the things I found, anytime you get invited to a local's house for dinner, you should try to take it because you're in for a treat. When we were invited, this man met us, and this is his house, but this is not a typical Thai house. This guy was pretty wealthy, and he actually had gone to school in California. He claimed that he played some basketball with Kobe Bryant, and he was supposed to be a very good basketball player in his time. And so he was there, so he had tons of money, but he invited us in. Here was our group, all the 9 of us that he was waiting for us. And he brought us in, and he started out with a little discussion about their food, especially curry. Then we ended up sitting down to just another incredible dinner buffet that they had cooked for us there. And good thing we walked a little bit. This is the main lobby we're checking out because now it's time. Unfortunately, the trip with the group is over. and we have to go to the airport, take the flight back to Bangkok. This was the only time we were asked to wear a mask on our trip, was going through the airport in Chiang Mai to get down to Bangkok again. Other than that, we had seen virtually nothing about this. There were no cases that we'd heard about, and we didn't know how serious it really had become back here in Canada. Once we were there, Torn did set us up. We had a little extra time, so he set us up in a boat again. And we did a little tour that was coming through. Now, a lot of these are Sharon's thoughts on what she saw. Again, those are Sharon's toes you see in front of you as they're going through the rivers to get a chance to see another side of it. And it's a great way, if you go, take some of these side tours. You can you're in a hotel, you can sign up for them, because it's just an incredible way to get a chance to see about it. You see a lot of new buildings, right beside them are temples. Here's a pagoda. It's another very ornate temple you're floating by. Oh, this was a pleasant spot. It was hot and muggy, and as we were sitting there, this guy drove out selling ice cold beer. He made that. Now, from that moment on, I knew this was going to be one of the best boat rides I'd ever been on, because that cold beer really hit the spot. And then we did a little more. You had gardens that were right beside shacks. You had very rich homes. They all lived. This place was cool. Sharon calls this the Lego building. And it looks like it was a Lego building. It's a pretty amazing structure. Once again, you see a lot of those. That's the Ferris wheel. So we knew we were getting back towards our hotel. And unfortunately, the trip is just about over. When we're saying goodbye, that's Stan, he's from Chicago. Every time he'd get on the bus, he gave that chicken a squawk. So you knew when Stan was entering, you hear this ungodly squawk. And our bus driver figured he deserves to keep the chicken. So here's his presentation for that chicken, for making that chicken squawk every time we got on. Now, Sharon and I were supposed to meet for a convention in Sri Lanka, but we had some extra time. Now, we'd been going north. We thought this would be a great opportunity to go south. So we got in Bangkok. We had a choice. Phuket is the famous one. We wanted to go to Krabi, which is just over on the other side. And I'd never heard of this place before, but I was so impressed with it. It was, and the other thing you'll notice, there's hardly anybody there. These are the beaches, and I'm a sucker for their beaches that are surrounded by mountains. It has everything. It makes me think of great tropical islands. And here's Sharon walking along this beach, but you notice there aren't very many people there. And that's the effects of it. And this is what we're looking at. It was a great place to spend a couple of days. Then we find this is called the Crazy Gringo. And right on the outside that you're sitting on the outside overlooking the boardwalk that goes by, you can see everything. That sort of became our little pub. You're sitting there and you're facing the Indian Ocean. That is a mojito there. And what better way? I was having mojitos. Sharon loves mango daiquiris. So to be sitting there having a mojito, a mango daiquiri, and looking at this, it almost takes your breath away. And like most of these beach towns, when the sun goes down, you get all sorts of entertainment. There's a young guy doing his bit with flames, and he's pretty colorful. Sharon's giving him a little bit of a tip. And one thing that Thailand is famous for are the Girlie Boys. Every night, these are guys. It's amazing. But they put on a song and dance show. And so they're right out in the street, encouraging people to come out and watch their show. And it's really pretty impressive. And Sharon went to the show I didn't feel like going and watching a bunch of amateurs sing and dance, but so I went to an Irish pub. But Sharon said it was all right. It was entertaining, but and I figured I can always that blessing must have helped. I figured it shows miracles do happen. That morning we had time, so we went out to book a tour to go through the islands. I persuaded James Bond Island. As soon as I heard of it, I got to see James Bond Island. If you saw the movie, Roger Moore starred it. Man with a golden gun, he's chasing guys. It's filmed around this island. And that was our tour director. And we got a chance. It's a nice, leisurely ride through some of these areas. Got out here, James Bond Island. And here Sharon is doing her spy setup on the island. This is as iconic as that same picture when you go to the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Everybody has to get that picture of them holding the Pisa Tower up from a distance or pinching the top of a pyramid. Well, this is the same sort of thing. You got to get your James Bond stand there. This scene, though, if you watch that, you will see Herbie Villachis, the little guy who played Tattoo in those Fantasy Island shows. He plays the helper of the henchman, whose name is Scaramucci, and this is James Bond's enemy. One point, a boat comes between these two points. It's coming up, and he stands right here. You'll recognize that scene in particular. It was nice. We got a chance to go swimming, and it was really a nice situation. But unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. It was time for us to head over to India, trying to meet up. We're in Sri Lanka, landed in Colombo. Now, we don't have time. Hopefully I'll get a chance to show you some of these, but we rented an Airbnb. The guy came and gave us breakfast all of the time, tons of fruit, hot sauce. These things are called poppers. They are kind of a crepe cooked in a bowl, and you can either put jam in them or eggs in them or that, but they are to die for. I could have put on pounds like crazy. The other thing, the biggest lizards I've ever seen. They're related to the Komodo dragons. They're just huge monitor lizards. And at first he looked for them and couldn't find them. And I figured, oh, big deal. I've seen monitor lizards. It's not a big deal. And then I saw this head, and it can't be. He owned his own tuk-tuk. He took us all over. It was really pretty impressive. But we're out of time, and that's another story that we can maybe give for you later. But I do want to finish this. We flew home. This was another thing on the top of my list. They left from there, went to Dubai, up over the North Pole, down into Los Angeles, where we had an ungodly layover, back over to Vancouver, where I said goodbye to Sharon, back into Regina. It dawned on me, I just flew around the world. I've always wanted to circumnavigate the world sometime, and I got a chance to do it. Well, I really want to thank all of you guys for putting up. Once it started working, it was okay. And for some reason, it left us sweating. But I really appreciate the opportunity to thank you. I'm available for questions. If you have any questions about this, by all means, if you get a chance to go to Thailand, go to Thailand. It's a whole new world. I love Southeast Asia. Now I'd love to go to Laos and Vietnam and see those places and experience those places. Once again, thanks for everything. And if you have any questions, feel free.
Rick, there's somebody that asked a question about the tour company that you went through.
It's Go Ahead. Oh, the one that you saw on there we took that trip was with Gate 1. That was the one that we had on. Most of the time we travel with Go Ahead, but that one was because Sharon and I were just doing that together. And it just coincided nicely with the convention. So we thought this would be a great opportunity. And I can't, both companies have been incredible. Go Ahead, that we found out the convention was just a start. And we found out they're closing the airports that night. The next morning, Go Ahead had us going home. And they had all of their people going home. They had them within 24 hours getting back home. You can tell how good it is when you have to deal with those kind of situations. Like that really impressed me. Gate 1 was fantastic, but these people they're in business because they're good. And with working with the travel club, you're looking for the best deal for your club. That's what we look for.
And when we look forward to traveling again, Go Ahead, the company that we do our groups with, is really, really good. They're watching the borders right now to see what the borders are doing between countries. They're watching to see the vaccination rates in countries. They're watching to see what the health situation is in the hospitals. So they're keeping an eye on all of that. They're not taking any tours anywhere right now, and they won't until it's safe for everybody to go. So it's they took really good care of us when we found out that we had to go home. They had groups, student groups, adult groups all over the world, and they had them all booked on flights within 24 hours to get home. So it's a good company, and you feel safe when you're with them.
When did you guys finally realize COVID was as serious as it was when you were traveling?
Well, we were over there for close to a month, and it really wasn't until we got to Colombo that we realized it, because schools were closing down in Sri Lanka. A lot of places were hearing about closing down, and then we heard that they were closing the airports, getting ready to close the airports, and that's the first time, because there was really no hint on our trip that it was, other than the fact there were basically no tourists. They say 1/3 of their tourists come from China, and there was nobody there from a lot of those places. So you had a feeling this isn't the same, but we felt really safe. In fact, when we got to Colombo, you couldn't go into the hotel without having your temperature taken, and you had to have your hands like it was up until that time. Because how many times have we heard this? We've gone through H1N1. We've gone through a lot of them, and in the prairies, a lot of times we really weren't hit with those. They were hit. They were able to contain those serious things in the east, and so we just take, oh well, here's another story. It was basically, for me personally, I didn't realize it was that serious till we got into Colombo. There were no hints about it when we were in Marissa, down on the coast where we stayed in Sri Lanka for a couple of nights before the convention. There was no hint about it at all down there.
But there were 20 people that had canceled their trip. So we had 9 of us on our trip in Thailand. So that was the first, but we really didn't, we thought, oh, well, it's just a little virus, whatever. And not until we were really flying home did we see, okay, everybody's flying home. It was, and then we got the seriousness of it for sure.
On the way home, we were basically tested, or they didn't have the test, but our temperatures were checked, and we had to show where we were from, things like that. They were careful flying home, but when I got in LA, that's the first time I was nervous, because they aren't doing anything here, and if you're going to catch it, it's going to be in Los Angeles. But hopefully it's a thing of the past. Numbers are going down, and who knows.